Hi everybody, and as I mentioned last time, this is another project that I'm going to start. I'm mulling what to do with the DR1 regarding its engine. The one I've got is a big lump of an engine and will need some major modification, so I need to think that through. I'm waiting for a part for the Cirrus Moth biplane. And I can't just spend my time twiddling my thumbs. So it's time for this Mercury Matador. And isn't this the most exciting thing? It's a bit like being a kid again on Christmas morning. An old kit, and I'm going to start it. So the plans I've already looked at. There's nothing startling about them. It's a traditional, very rugged design, stick and balsa design. The instructions, I'll just read this little introduction, really nice. The Matador has been designed primarily as a free flight cabin model, which is ideally suited to radio control. This does not mean that it's not equally suited for normal free flight. It is in fact of such a rugged and simple construction that it can be tackled by beginners to power modelling. For radio work, a diesel of 1.5 cc capacity is recommended, and for free flight 1 to 1.5 cc. There you go. Well, I've got the motors. I haven't decided which one to use. Is it going to be the DC 1.5 or the Frog? I'll run both of them again. They both ran beautifully, but I'll run them again and make a decision when I get to that stage. And as I said, really excited because it has to be cut out, and I love anything like this. I love back to old school modelling. So I'm going to cut out the parts for the former. The former's rather for the fuselage. So let's see if we can find where they are. That's obviously the wing. W's the clue. W. I think that these two sheets in 3/16 are the sheets for the formers for the fuselage. F1, F2, F3, 4, 5. Let's see, 6, 7, don't know where 8 is, there's 9. Let's get these cut out, and it's 3/16 balsa, so it's quite substantial. There's a slight warp in that, which I'll get out by wetting them once I've cut them out, I think. New blades, I have a heavy blade somewhere else. There you go, Stanley for the heavier stuff. This board could do with replacing, never mind. Let's cut these out. I want to cut them slightly proud of the line, I think. Easy does it, gentle cuts. Don't try and force the cut. Once I've cut all of these out, they'll go in a box and we'll get the building board out, and then we'll start the stick part of the construction. Hope you can see this. I'll just cut this out. Then we'll do the rest as a time lapse, and we'll come back and look at the plan in a little bit more detail. I haven't cut all the way through there. I'll turn it around and cut the opposite direction. This is thick enough really, it could have been cut on the fret, so turn it round. back a little bit. That's where I normally push everything off the bench by accident. It's going to take some cutting. This is why people like laser cut parts, I suppose. But I enjoy this, I've got to be honest. There we go. That's the first. Is it out? Almost. There you go. First part cut out. That's F9, F10. There you go. I don't know where F10 goes yet, but that's the first part cut out. Nice and by gum, some of that was hard, as my wife might say. I'll sand these to shape. I need a little bit of fettling, and you'll notice I haven't cut the notches out yet because it makes reference to the position of the bearers regarding which engine you use. Now I actually have a Frog 150 and I may well put that in, but before I do I'd like to try it again. And I've noticed that there's a slight bow in some of these formers. So what I'm going to do is dampen the side, the inner concave side, which will expand it, and put a weight on. I'll put a weight on there and leave it. And while that's happening, let's take this engine, put it in a stand and give it a go. And if it looks reliable, this is the one I'll go with. How's that sound for an idea? Yeah? Let's go with that. Let's give this engine a try then. If it works, then this is the one that I'll make the cutouts in the formers to suit, because it is a Frog. Let's do a little bit of priming through the port. Nearly. Well, that seems to be working, doesn't it? The needle valve doesn't seem to show much sensitivity at all, but it runs. Loads of power. That's the one that I'm going to put in. Now that we can see that that engine's running, I can get these formers, the holes actually cut out of them to the required distance. In the meantime, there's a curve, definite curve on these formers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet the inside of the curve so that the grain expands, put them on a sheet of glass, put another sheet of glass over the top. These are old glass chopping boards, and weigh them down and leave them. And what I'll do is I'll go and get myself a coffee, and then we'll come back and we'll have a look at the plan itself, and we'll start sticking it out, I think. So I'm just wetting the inner side of the curve face down, inner side of the curve, face down, put a sheet of glass on the top, put a weight on. I think it's coffee time. Before beginning the actual construction of the fuselage, I'm going to actually select which wood is the most suitable for it. Now, in a kit, excuse the work going on down the road, a neighbour's getting a drive put in. In a kit, you're sort of stuck with what they give you, and that can vary enormously between one kit and another. But there is normally some variation in the weight of the stringers. Now, I've sorted these out into medium, lightweight, and you can feel they're just lighter. That's a medium one. And heavier stringers. And for the fuselage, I'm going to use these heavier ones. So the first thing I've already done, I've selected out the material to make the fuselage. I'm going to need to make a couple of splices because the lengths as they are aren't long enough. So we'll do that. I'll put this away, these away, and get the building board out, and we'll start actually constructing the fuselage. We are ready now to start doing the stick part of the stick construction, and you can see here that I've spliced two of the pieces of 3/16 balsa together, and the easiest way to make a scarf joint, I think, is as follows. So take the two pieces of balsa, place it on the board, and I'm going to cut through both of them at the same time. Wasn't sure if I was recording there. Now, there should be a good match. If I apply some CA, there's the joint. And it's best when you're doing this to stagger the scarf joint so it's on different locations on the actual build, and we'll look at that as we go along. There you go, job done. Let's have a look at the plan. I'm going to begin with this bottom one first. I'm going to cut it a little longer than it needs to be, and because this is quite stiff balsa, strong, I'm actually going to steam it a little so I can induce the bend. So cut that to length. I'll cut the second one to length, but this time what I'll do is, instead of having the scarf joint in the same position, I'll switch it round and have it at this end. But I'll use that as a... No, actually I'll leave that for the moment. Just bear with me. Normal convention is that you build one and then you build the second one directly on top of it. But in all honesty, I'm quite confident that I can build both of them accurately. And then you don't have the hassle of them sticking together accidentally. You have to slice them apart. I'm confident I can build these, but the convention is that you build one side and then you build the other side directly on top. I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to steam this to induce a bend in it, and we'll get this pinned down. Bear with me while I steam it. Nice bend induced there. Not a lot, but enough. I'll pin this down now, remembering I've been a little bit generous in the length. It often takes a lot of pins to put a bend in. I've got more bends in the bloody pins, but never mind. The quality of them varies enormously, and some of these T-pins are spot on, others are just hopeless. Far too soft. I'm pinning into a plasterboard base here, which sits on top of a plywood building board. The plasterboard was an idea that I saw Cliff Harvey using, a great tip. It takes a pin nicely and they come flat as long as you don't abuse them and you store them in a suitable manner, and they last ages. This was an offcut which I then cut in half to fit the building board, and I haven't changed it yet, so I'm really quite happy with it. Pin this down and then I think we'll do the rest as a time lapse really. It's just a case of cutting and gluing. And to be honest, the only technical part of this at all is, or tip I can offer, is how to cut a scarf joint accurately. Straightforward, just cut through both at the same time, one next to the other, not on top of it. Right, there's the first one down. I'll add this top one next, and then we'll put this horizontal and then the verticals. And I'll do that as a time lapse, and when it comes to the gussets, I'll show that in real time. I've just had a little thought when I've done this. If I zoom in, there's a slight angle on this point where the upper part that holds the wing then goes down slightly at the tail end of the fuselage. And rather than having a joint here or trying to bend it in one piece, well, I am bending it, but what I've actually done is I've sawn through, but not all the way through. And that's going to allow it to bend and then still retain some of the fibre strength. When I zap some glue in and the gusset goes both sides, it'll provide a much stronger joint than just a plain glued one. But just pause here for a moment. I'm beginning to run out of the heavier material. I'm going to use lighter stock for the tail because you always want to try and save weight in the tail area and keep the heavier material for the front, where obviously there'll be more strength required. It's the engine bearing part and the wing. And I'll use some of the lighter stock for the tail area. I'll leave the pole, I'll leave it there, the time lapsing now, and I'm just going to finish it, then we'll come back and see it when it's done. This side's just about done. I have two small pieces to add, the gussets. I was actually going to glue that in as a triangle and then sand it out to the line with a Dremel, but I have managed to cut it. The danger is that when you cut these, you actually break off the tips, but I've managed to do that. Let's get it glued in, and then when that's done, it's a case of leaving it to dry. Although I'm using CA here, some locations I've used white glue and it'll need to dry properly. And I could leave it on the board and build the next one over the top. As I've said, the only problem with that technique is that you tend to glue the bits together no matter how hard you try, and then you've got to hack them off. I'd much rather build them as two separate sides, but I do understand the argument for doing that. A couple of little gussets there to do, but I'm calling this video done. If you've enjoyed the start of this new project and you're not subscribed, if you subscribe you'll be able to keep up with the progress. And if you don't mind, if you've enjoyed this, please give me a thumbs up, and that spreads the word to other modelers. If you can get flying, do so. If you can't, let's get creative. Bye for now.